I look for those sparks of beauty that you see even in spaces that may not necessarily be typically beautiful.
Welcome to Make and Decorate, a podcast for makers who love to sew, quilt, and decorate. Hello and welcome everyone to episode 28 of the Make and Decorate podcast. So this episode comes out on the 23rd of May, which is just before our long holiday weekend in the States. It's Memorial Day weekend, and most everybody gets a nice 4-day weekend. But the big concern here is the weather. It's been crazy. Today it's barely in the 50s, and the next 3 days it's going to jump up 30 degrees to the 80s, but we're going to have more rain and storms across those 3 days. And the forecast is showing that on Memorial Day Monday, we should have perfect weather. And that is full sun, no clouds, and 75 degrees. So I'm looking forward to that, and I do hope that forecast does not change. But it's just been very volatile weather across the country, and I'm really not going to complain about our weather, even though it's been crazy. We've just had to deal with some pesky rain, storms, and going from 50s to 80s back and forth a few times, but nothing, super damaging like other parts of the country are experiencing. So I'm not going to complain. I have got a phenomenal guest on the show today, Latifah Saafir, and I can't wait for you guys to listen and to hear this. But first, I'm just going to go through my normal first segment of just updates. Last weekend, I went to a Libs Elliot workshop. Libs Elliot was in the area, and I kind of got in at last minute, and I was so lucky. So it was a great workshop. It was an all-day workshop, and it was at the Thimbles Quilt Shop, which Tammy Newton was one of my episodes, one of the owners that I interviewed. And this quilt shop has a huge classroom space. It's all the entire upper second floor. And a cool thing also is that you don't have to lug your sewing machine upstairs. They have like this old fashioned freight elevator, so you can just roll your machines onto it, and then they will send them upstairs. So that's kind of cool. But this workshop was called Embrace the Chaos Quilt. And I had really no idea of what to expect. I'm very familiar, and I know Libs, her work. And last year she had this really cool campaign with Absolute Vodka, and where one of her quilt designs, I think she did a red maple leaf, through her technique of designing through computer code processing. And so, and then she also has fabrics. She's a fabric designer, a pattern designer, and she's got that really cool quilt pattern that a lot of you know about, which is like the skull. It's big. It covers almost the entire quilt and looks really cool. So it was really nice to meet her, and it was a great class. But again, I wasn't sure because, the information was embrace the chaos, and we are going to mimic computer programming with random quilt pattern design. So, that's great. I was up for it, but I'm like, I have no idea how we're going to do that. But it was so much fun. It really was. And I went in there very open-minded, and you have to do this because otherwise you're going to make it so hard on yourself. But if you do go in and embrace it, it is a lot of fun. When Libs was walking around, and we had to bring like colored pencils or markers, so we were coloring in our designs and to where our fabrics were going to be placed. And the process, though, we didn't do this on computers, but she did like a mimic. So she developed this really fun little way of doing a random design on the blocks that we were using that the computer usually does for her. So it was really a lot of fun. I think this is a course that she does for quilt guilds, and this was for the Chicago Modern Quilt Guild. And after you kind of go through the process of making your random quilt design, and it was really cool too because these were for like a 30-inch square or a 40-inch square quilt design, which I kind of liked. And so that you didn't get overwhelmed with a ginormous quilt pattern. And what's really so amazing about this is that no one's quilt pattern is going to be the same as anyone else's. I mean, the combinations are like infinite. So that was really cool. We all put our, finished colored in pattern designs together and took a picture of those. I have that posted on my Instagram. And so go take a look at that if you want to see. And then after that, you just kind of go through and start cutting out your pieces for the blocks and putting them together. So although I did embrace the chaos, there was still part of me that wanted to refine this design. And by that, Libs said that you can do anything with these blocks, and you don't have to make the quilt as the blocks are in each row. So meaning that some of these shapes, when they're all put together, all the rows are laid together, you can overlap them and make larger shapes in the overall quilt design. And I thought that was really cool. So I spent some time figuring that out so that across the quilt I kind of had like little, chevron bigger type patterns that spanned across several blocks and, a little bit more of like a larger graphic. So that was cool. I had a ton of fun with that. And I was working on that for a while some other people were already like cutting their fabrics out. But when Libs was coming around to everybody, I was having so much fun with it. And I told her, man, I could just sit here for hours and you can come up with so many different combinations. But, then she's like, yep, that's true. And it's then it comes to the point of where you like have to say, okay, it's time to stop, which is so true. But I didn't have a problem with that either. I kind of like figured out my shapes and then I stopped, and I was just really pleasantly surprised at how much fun this was. And I thought it might be stressful because going into something that you have absolutely no idea what you're doing could be stressful, but this was actually so much fun. It was just refreshing. I absolutely loved this workshop, love Libs, and she is just an amazingly talented person. She's an artist and designer, and it was just really cool. It was just really a wonderful experience. So I really wanted to finish this quilt top. When I got home, I continued to work on it. Like I was that into this. I set up my little station like downstairs, not in my regular sewing studio, so that I can continue to work on it while I spent time with my husband in front of the TV. And so I worked on it and I got everything cut out and I made a block. And then that night, oh my gosh, my arm was killing me because I've been dealing with this tendonitis and, it's from the elbow and now I have a rotator cuff injury. And, I finally realized that all of that rotary cutting aggravated my arm. It was terrible. So I just finally came to realization I really have to rest this arm and I'm just laying off quilting for a couple of weeks, especially like the rotary cutting. I can probably still sew at the machine, but lifting the iron even. So it's so hard for me to do. It's crazy, but I know I have to do it because it'll never get better. And it's just So painful. But anyway, you guys don't want to hear about that. But you do understand that when you have something that precludes you from doing your craft, it's really a bummer, and it's so hard. It's so hard to deal with. Ah! Oh, I'm pouting. I know. All right. So I want to give you guys a reminder to sign up for my newsletter. I've seen, a bunch of you sign up, and that's wonderful. I don't know when the first one's coming out. I'm trying to get one done for June. So we'll see if I accomplish that goal. Okay, and then another announcement about my website. I do have a shop, and I've got some interior design consultation items on there, and I'm going to run a sale for a couple of weeks. So go check it out. If you just go to my website, stephaniesochadesign.com, and go to the shop, I've got 20% off some of the consult services. And I relabeled some of these because some of them are definitely geared towards you guys as makers and do-it-yourself DIYers. There's a color consult, and sometimes people just need some guidance on color palettes and how you carry that throughout your home without being too repetitive, but still having a flow. There's one on furniture with color consult. And what I mean by furniture is just, for one of your rooms, if you need some help with furniture layout or ideas, if maybe you're planning on getting a sofa, but don't want to make a mistake by either getting one that's not going to fit through your door or even fit in the room, or maybe one that's too small. So upholstery furniture is a large investment, and you really want to know what the plan is before you go shopping for those items. So that is what that one is for. And then I have a third one for DIY ready-made window covering how-tos. And if you are wanting to, let's say you want to just order like shades from the shade store or someplace like that, even from Home Depot, then you'll have to know how to measure your windows properly in order to get those ordered, because that's what DIY is. You got to do this stuff yourself. And then even if, a lot of those services have installers that will come out and do a final measure for fabrication. But even then, you really have to take the responsibility of knowing what you want, because sometimes you don't want to leave all the decisions up to like an installer, because they're not designers and they just know like what they install. And a lot of times they'll go for what's easiest for them to install. So there's a lot to consider, but you have to have the know-how on how to do that. So that is what that one is for. So 20% off, and I'm going to run it for 2 weeks. And so take advantage of that while it's there. All right. So, hey, I've got some new reviews and comments in email that I would like to talk about. And because if you take the time to do a review, especially an iTunes review, iTunes does not make it the easiest to do that, but I really appreciate those who have done so. And the most recent one I saw up there is from Donna at Sozo. And here's what she wrote. Great tips on decorating, helpful info on sewing machines, notions, etc. The interviews are conversational and interesting and friendly. The YouTube videos are awesome, and the frequency is very appreciated. Thank you for putting us out there. So thank you so much, Donna. I really appreciate your comment, and it really, first of all, it really makes my day. It makes me happy to hear that. And secondly, it motivates me to continue to put together great content for everyone. I got an email from Susan V., and she actually had a request for a podcast topic, so I will incorporate this sometime soon. I thought it was a good idea. She She wants some decorating tips on how to make shabby chic in an updated way. So how to decorate that way, because back in the day, and I know exactly what she's talking about, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, shabby chic was like a thing. It was, really like a popular thing. Like how today the Joanna and Chip Gaines look is everywhere with the black window trim and white walls. Well, back then, shabby chic was the thing. And it was very Victorian. It was very feminine. Lots of floral and lace and that sort of thing. So I understand what she's looking for because she does like it, but doesn't want all of that froof. And so there is a way to do that. And I will do an upcoming podcast segment on it. So thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. And thanks for taking the time to send an email. All right, so this first segment has gone a wee bit over what I normally do, and I don't want to make you wait any longer for my conversation with Latifah Saafir. So if you hang around at the end, I'll just do a little mini segment on what I've been watching and a YouTube recommendation. So stay tuned for that, or don't, whatever you are feeling. Latifah Saafir of Latifah Saafir Studios is my guest on the podcast today. Latifah is a quilt pattern designer. She's a fabric designer with Hoffman Fabrics, and she also has designed acrylic templates for her clammy quilts. And she's got a new pattern that I believe has released by now. So we talk about all of that in the podcast. So here we go. Today, I welcome Latifah Saafir of Latifah Saafir Studios to the show today. Hi, Latifah.
Stephanie, how are you doing today?
Oh, very good. Very good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Great. So I was just telling you that I met you in person way back in 2015 at the Chicago Sotopia retreat.
Yeah, that was the first time that they had a teacher at a Sotopia event.
Mm-hmm.
And it was intense. It was like 40 students in a classroom. But
Yes.
we rocked it out. It was a lot of fun.
That was my very first retreat of sewing of any kind.
Shut up. Seriously?
Yeah. So it was quite over.
Pepper Quilts was there too. And that was her first time teaching. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It was a first for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
There were a lot of people there. That was crazy.
It was a funny.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But for me, at that time, I had only been quilting for, I don't know, maybe like 3 years. And I had maybe made 3 quilt tops at that point. So, and I don't know if you could see, but.
I see your mobiles blocks in that.
It's from that class. I haven't even finished it yet.
That's fine. They're still
embarrassing. But the reason why I haven't finished it is because that's for me. So all my stuff always gets pushed back because I'm making stuff for everybody else. And I hear people say, oh, if I don't need any more quilts in my house. And I'm like, really? Because I seem to think you keep going out of my house.
Exactly. Over the last year or two, I finally made quilts for our bed.
Yeah.
I finally like, you know what? That kind of does not make sense.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to, and a lot of it was just finishing the quilts I had started, like your molehills.
Yes,
so
for sure.
The same thing. Yeah. And I finally like, it doesn't make sense. We have 3 quilts now that we use on our bed.
Oh, great. I know. Yeah. So I'm definitely making like a mental goal type thing of, I gotta make some stuff for me because
when we talk, I want to see progress.
Yeah. And I kind of have an idea for this. Well, I don't know because it's laptop size.
You can go bigger. As long as you have to start putting it together, you can always go bigger. And they're so big that going bigger is not that difficult.
Yeah, because I would need it for a king, or I might still keep it as throw, but I want to do like an applique on top of the molehill, like this butterfly. So I've gotten ideas for it.
I can't wait.
Cool. Yeah, I will definitely show you when I finally get it done. So anyway, let's talk about you and where you're from.
So I was born in Cincinnati, never really lived there. And then we moved to LA when I was a baby still.
Oh, okay.
LA is my dad's hometown.
Uh-huh.
And we lived in LA until I was about 12. And then we moved to Texas. So I
Oh,
spent junior high school, college in Texas. And then I moved back to Los Angeles. So that's where I live now. And I've been here for a long time.
okay. So you're in Los Angeles,
In LA.
and then when did you first know? I ask almost everybody this, but not just like when you started sewing, but I'm really curious to know when you just realized that you have a creative bug or gene that, you just really wanted to follow, and you knew that, being creative was for you.
So when I was I'm going to say about 6 or 7. I'm not sure exactly, but I was fairly young. My dad started us creating. So I am second oldest of 7. And I always say I think he did it just to keep us busy. But he started us making greeting cards. And it was this thing that we did all the way through high school. It eventually became our first little business, me and my older sister. But we made greeting cards with felt and foil paper and lace and construction paper and, all of that. And that was kind of when I caught the bug. And I've sort of been creative ever since. Mm-hmm. So I was a serial crafter like no one else is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're all serial crafters, right? And my mom taught us to sew kind of around the same time, but we didn't really pick that up until I was about 10. My older sister and we did a lot of stuff together. We're only like a year apart.
Oh.
So, cool. Yeah. So when I started sewing then, and when we got interested, she just gave us the machine. So that's sewing because she hated to sew. But she had the foresight to teach us, and so as second oldest of 7, we also didn't have like a lot of new clothes and things growing up. So we're like, okay, well, I guess we have to make them ourselves. So it was kind of cool learning how to sew at that age, though.
Yeah, and it's really, you say, oh, we didn't learn until 10. I'm like, that's pretty young. You had a really good start.
And then literally, she just gave us the machine. She taught us the basics, how to get around the machine, how to do basic maintenance and clean it, how to, put in like a buttonhole, a zipper, and,
That's awesome.
She was always there to help. Like she knew, but she hated it, so she didn't like to do it herself.
I think my mom secretly didn't like it, but she did sew for us when we were young, like you said, for clothes. So I'm the oldest of 6, and I have three brothers behind me. So we all had those matching tank tops and shorts in the summer, the terry cloth.
Yes. Yeah. We had matching stuff too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But my mom, it wasn't so secret that she hated it. I always like she doesn't really cuss, or didn't, at least when we were growing up. So I always say my biggest memory of my mom at a sewing machine is her cussing the machine out without using cuss words. So, but thankfully she passed on the tools test.
Yeah, my mom made up like a PG cuss words. So whenever you would hear fudge brownies.
Exactly.
That's cool. So then you were, when did you start quilting though?
I didn't start quilting to the same year that we founded the Modern Quilt Guild. So, which now we're going on 9 years coming up. Yeah. This is 10 years. We're 9 years. We're going on 10 years and a couple of months for the first meeting for the LA Modern Quilt Guild. That was 2009, and that was the same year I started quilting.
Oh,
the thing about, I sort of dove in head first because I did not have to learn how to sew to quilt.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So I just have to learn like the quilt specific things. So.
Right. Me too. Cause I had been sewing off and on for a long time. I started quilting in 2010 was when I took my very first class, but I was not like, I didn't dive into it. I mean, I learned how to sew quilt tops, but then the class didn't show you what to do after that. So, and then I took like a piecemeal, sort of like a quilting class, but I just think that like when people can take the whole thing together, it makes more sense.
It does.
Even if you just make a little mini quilt, learning that whole process takes the intimidation out of it, the whole process, because then you like fret and fear and worry, and then by the time I finally did it, it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
This is doable
Yeah, it's difficult.
because I like you. I mean, I sewed clothing and home deck and stuff for many years before, and then 2010. So, but that's great. I mean, and did you co-found the Los Angeles Modern Quilt Guild or
I
the Quilt Modern Quilt
both.
Guild?
Both.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we started the LA Guild, and soon after, everyone else started saying we want to do the same thing, and groups started popping up all over the place. And then
Hmm.
we decided, like, if we don't organize as a national organization, someone else is going to.
Sure.
So we started sort of, and we were treading water for a long time because we didn't know how to do what we were trying to do,
Hmm.
and we were playing catch up for a number of years as well. But we started the LA Guild and then the national organization.
Oh, cool. All right. So, yeah, because I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I'm a individual member, and
Yeah.
I was also a member of the Chicago one too. But it's it's not a long story. It's they meet on Sundays, and it's hard for me to get to those.
Oh, I get it.
So then
I very rarely make it to our LA Guild meetings anymore too because I travel a lot, and then when I'm home I care for
yeah.
my grandfather. So
I
I
feel
mean,
guilty for not going to more than like three
yeah,
meetings. So then I'm like, I better just do individual then.
yeah, yeah, I get it.
But they're so nice, so I may go back to that because they're like, you can come anytime, and
Yeah, it's
blah blah
fun
blah.
even
So
when you can't only go every now and again, just to see everybody and
right,
see quick
yeah,
person.
uh-huh,
It's really
yeah, absolutely. Because when I do go, it's so much fun, and there's so many talented people there,
yeah.
and they're so friendly, and it's just nice to be in a group setting with other people that love and to do the same thing you like
Right.
to do.
And I always leave feeling inspired and like ready to sew.
Hmm. Mm. Right, right. Cool. So, so you're still part of that guild today,
Yes.
and oh, I wanted to talk about. I kind of know what sewing machine you use because I've been watching your YouTube videos. But talk about what you sew on.
So I primarily sew on the Janome 6700 QCP. I was Janome educator for years,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm one of those kind of people where I'm not a natural salesperson, so I have to really, really love a product to sell it. And as an educator, that's what you are. You're kind of a glorified salesperson.
Right.
You just have to know a lot about the machines. And so I did that for a number of years, and I've always been a Janome girl. So I've had the 6600, the 8900, I have the 6700 currently. And I also own a 1600P, which is
Okay.
a straight stitch only machine as well.
Yes. Yeah, because that's similar to the machine I have, which is the Juki
Oh, yeah.
2010Q.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Pedal to the
right.
metal, baby.
Yeah, yeah. That was the other cool thing of being at the Sewtopia because everybody brought their machines, and that's when I first started hearing about this high-speed straight stitch end all be all for quilters. And there was one person there that she was part of the I don't know crew or whatever of the event, and she let me try out her baby lock version of it, the Jane. And I was like, oh, wow. That's nice. So then I ended up getting my Juki. But, oh, and this is a funny thing. So in your molehills class, on your supply sheet, you had bring a seam roller to class. And I come in there, and you're like, okay, get out your seam rollers. And I pull out the seam roll that you press close on.
Oh my God. I don't even remember that. That's a great
like, oh, I do. It was like a little embarrassing. I'm like, and you're like, oh no, a seam roller. Like you're going to roll open your seams.
It just makes me more convenient. That's funny.
It was funny.
That is funny.
Oh man. That was good times.
Yeah, it was. It was a fun class. It was a good group. It was a really fun group. Yeah, it was a fun.
I was lucky too because I got to sit like right behind you.
Yeah.
So that was sitting close to the teachers has its perks. Okay. And okay, so you are definitely like Janome all the way. Do you think you already have your dream machine, or do you have one that you kind of dream about having one day?
So the only big feature that I think I don't have, when I had my 8900, which is the machine I had before this one, and I tried all the all the way up to the 15,000 just being an educator. And I
Okay.
actually had that in my home for like a year and a half,
Okay.
so I've tried them all. But the biggest thing I think, and I think a lot of sewists would agree with this, is a massive bobbin. And that's
Yes.
technology. I mean, some machines have larger bobbins, but that's a technology like an endless bobbin where you could hook the same spool of thread up that you do to your machine. That would be like dream machine.
That is actually a good, yes, that would
So,
be
and
a
that's
dream
a
machine.
technology that hasn't really been developed yet. So,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I have got a Bernina that has that jumbo bobbin, and
yeah,
I love it because when I switch back over to the Juki, it's so much smaller, and I'm like, what? I gotta fill this again, and I'm like, fill 5 of them all at once, but it's still a pain to like have to flip open the bobbin thing, stop what you're doing. But
exactly.
that's actually a great. I think I would wish for that too, for like,
And there's a lot of features. I mean, even the 6700, I had the 9400. I used that for a
uh-huh,
while before the 6700, and it has like the automatic foot
the
that hovers,
hover.
and all of that. Those are fun too. But
Hmm.
for me, a mechanical straight stitch only machine is perfect for what I do. I love the 6700 because of the dual feed foot, which is like
Hmm.
the built-in walking foot system.
Right.
That's going to do a ton of straight line quilting, and my 1600P will do it, but that built-in walking foot is just that much better. So
So the machine that you did in your YouTube video that where you sewed the clamshell rows together, which one is that? The one with the dual feed?
that's the 6700P. Uh-huh.
Okay, that I was like, that looks pretty nice because at first, because it looks similar to the
Yeah,
1600p because
it
it's
does.
got the huge harp space.
Yeah, so the
Um,
6700 is the newer model of the 6600, which has been out for like, I don't know, like 15 years, and was
okay.
I like, it's one of Genomi's even still best-selling machines ever.
Huh.
And it has a metal body like the 1600P.
Yeah.
And I think it has the same amount of throat space. So it's not the 11 inches like the 8900 has or the 9400, but it's closer to like 9
Okay.
plus,
Yeah, it's still roomy.
which is the same as your Juki. It's about
Right.
the same throat space wise.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the 6700.
But it will do decorative stitches like zigzag, and because you were moving your needle around.
Exactly. It does the 9 millimeter stitches. So you have a
9
ton of
millimeter.
91 needle positions. I sound like the genome educator, right? I know these machines
No,
very
but
well.
this is good because
Yeah.
people are always looking for features, and you know they only see what's around them.
Right.
So if we don't have like a good Janome dealer, then how are you going to know? So yeah, I mean that's good, and I didn't even know that machine.
And
So
it's a mid-level price point. So
which is good. Yeah.
there like the 9400 is top of the line sewing only.
Mm-hmm.
And this is still, like I don't know, 3,000 plus. I don't know how much it costs on the market. So it's not the $5,000 machine, it's
Right.
below that. So it's not quite as expensive, but it's full featured. It's great, and it still has that really robust feel because
Uh,
it's metal on the outside, so people
yeah.
love it. Sturdy feel,
Yes.
to that machine.
Yeah, and as you were sewing on it, does it also have the higher speed, like the
It
other one
I
does?
think
Like
it
1,000 stitches or more?
It does go to 1,000. I think it's like 1,050. So
That's good.
it's
Yeah.
not 1,600 stitches per minute. So it's not your straight stitch only.
Okay.
But when you do they have a straight stitch needle plate on this machine,
Ooh.
and it actually sews at a slightly higher speed when the straight
Huh.
stitch needle plate is on it. It gives you that stability of that, that needle being in that one position as
Yeah.
well. So it's a fabulous machine. I love it.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I was really like focusing on this machine while you were sewing with it, but also
Maybe I'll have to do a little
you should
tour of the
do a
machine.
tour of the machine. That's pretty cool because that's not one that I have seen very often. I didn't
Yeah.
even know that. And you said though it's the previous model of it has been around for a while.
The
That's
6600 was my first big girl machine. So when I decided I was serious about quilting,
yeah.
I bought it off of someone on Craigslist,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not, and I paid like $1,000 for it, which for me was a whole lot because before I had
Sure.
$350 Kenmore machines,
Mm-hmm.
I really thought I was big stuff at the time. But the previous model was my first, which is probably why I like this line of machines because it's so familiar to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty nice.
it's funny you said, because I got my Juki off of Craigslist.
Did you really? Yeah.
It was for a ridiculously low price, but
Yeah.
I mean, I knew where it was coming from though, because it was this kids' summer camp, and
Oh,
they had used these machines just for the summer, and that was it. And
wow.
they were like brand new. Yeah.
Oh, you came
I
up.
mean, I drove like almost an hour and a half to go get it, but I didn't care. I was just like, I am getting a Dookie TL 2010Q. I'm like you. I'm like, I'm a big girl now with the cool, fast machine.
Exactly.
It's awesome. But
Exactly.
cool. Yeah. I like that. I like that machine that you have there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the best of both worlds with your quilting, and yet you can still incorporate some of
Absolutely.
the 9mm stuff with it with decorative stitches. Cool.
Absolutely.
All right. So if you couldn't tell, I love machines.
Yeah. I do too. I do.
So let's get into the story of Latifah Saafir Studios, because I don't know, when you were at Zootopia, were you at that time or not?
I was slowly, yes, because my first pattern, Molehills was my first pattern.
I thought that was your first pattern.
That's my
Okay.
very first printed pattern. And I'm not sure the timing. I don't know. Sometimes the years start to kind of run into each other, but I was getting started at that time. I was still a Janome educator at the
Okay.
time. And I was slowly building because I had to learn a lot to be able to write patterns. And I do all my illustrations, all my photography, layout. Like I do it all from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was just before then that I had my successful Kickstarter campaign. So what happened was in 2012 or 2013, I got laid off of my technology job. I have a mechanical engineering degree, and I've kind of been in the technology world for a number of years. I worked at Salesforce.com. And when I got laid off of my technology job at Salesforce, I decided that I was going to follow my heart instead of my head and do something that I enjoyed more.
Good.
But I didn't quite know how to do that.
Right.
So I met Janome, my Janome contacts at the first QuiltCon. They were a major sponsor at QuiltCon. And I was kind of talking to them about what I wanted to do. And they were like, well, while you're working on developing your own brand and getting yourself out there and all of that, do you want to come work with us in the meantime? And they've always been really supportive of me doing that as well. So I said, sure. So I traveled and worked with Janome for a number of years. That was actually a really great experience because it put me in the classroom of some amazing teachers that have been around for some of them like 20, 30 years. I got a chance to really get a taste for the industry, be in and out of quilt shops all across the country, go to all the shows. So it was a really fabulous experience for me. And I gained a lot. I asked lots of questions because I knew what my end goal was, and Janome did as well. And then Amber, one shabby chick, what is her, and from Hawaii, what's her, Amber Carrillo, I don't know, I'm probably mispronouncing her name, but she says, why don't you do a Kickstarter? And I'm like, oh, I've never thought about that. So and it took me a while to get it off the ground because it's really hard to put yourself out there like that. Because it's different people saying, we love your work and we love your work. Here's money,
Right.
It's a little bit of a different thing. So I spent a lot of time to put out this pretty professional Kickstarter campaign and do all of that. And that was a huge learning experience too, because I overpromised and it took me forever to get product out. So it was the most amazing experience. I was completely funded in like just over a day. And I raised like $20,000 to get the product out. So it was this amazing experience. And I've had so much love and support from people who have been with me from the beginning and from the industry and all of that. So that was kind of the beginning of it. But it's been a few years for me kind of to build up to where I am now. I've been doing it full time for probably the last 2 to 3 years, about 3 years now. Okay. So I know I stopped my work with Janome. I'm still associated with them, so they'll send me machines and stuff to play with.
So that's cool.
That's a good thing.
Fun.
But
that's a great partnership that you made with them, and that sounds like a great company that they knew what your path was, and they still supported you, and they were not like, no, you must only do this for us. So absolutely. That was awesome. That's very good.
And they're very supportive. So I just, my first blueprint class just launched, And
I saw it.
and it's so, yeah, I'm so excited. They did such a good job on it. And Janome actually sponsored the class and they referred me. So they were like, oh, you want a great
Oh,
teacher? We'll show you a great teacher. I'm like, that, so that, they still support me and I try to support them as well. So it's a really great relationship.
yeah, you are a great teacher. I mean, I've been in one in-person class and then online class. So
That's
very,
perfect.
very good. I still remember, I know that Sotobia feels like ages ago, but I still remember certain things and I like, I so similarly to you where it's like, fold the curve in half to find the center point, just easy stuff like that to like make it easier and less intimidating to do the
Exactly.
curves. And I
Exactly.
like sewing curves anyway, so
Yeah, I do
it's
too.
fun.
Well, if you started from garment sewing and then jumped into quilting,
Yeah,
then you usually are intimidated by curves.
right,
People
right.
who start off with quilting a lot of times and they're like, oh my God, I'm going around this curve now, but
That's true.
yeah,
Very true.
that's been my experience.
Oh, cool. So, and then you, wait, so go back to the Kickstarter thing because that is intimidating and you really are like on a smaller scale, but think of like, I don't know, like before Google was Google and they have to get like these investors.
Hmm.
And, that's like nerve wracking. That's just like asking people to invest
Yeah,
in, intellectual property
right.
and
Right.
not actually a physical, tangible thing is a
Yeah.
hard thing. Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is, I had never, I had never finalized patterns before for print. I had never finalized patterns for print. I, my my clammy templates
Yes.
was all conceptual, so I didn't have final artwork for that,
Uh-huh.
and I was almost done with a lot of it. But a few of those things, I'm like, I'm 80% done with X, Y, and Z, but that 20% that I had left, I had to figure out how to do. So
Uh-huh.
it took me just as longer than that 80%. And so it was really, really like I was in tears. I was on the road with Janome like the second day when I got fully funded, and I posted my second video post from my hotel room on the road with Janome somewhere like I don't know, like in New Hampshire. I don't know, I was on the East Coast somewhere. And I literally was like in tears because I'm like, oh my God, people actually believe in what I'm doing and want to see me be successful. So it was a really, really gratifying experience. And it took me way too long to get the product out. And I was trying so hard every day trying to like figure everything out. But it is what it is. I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I should have communicated more. I should have done this and that, but I
Mm-hmm.
really, really like was putting my all into it. So
But
I
what?
learned a lot of great lessons from it. And
Sure.
it was like a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, and what you did is you you actually just did it like because that's one of the things I struggle with a lot is over preparedness and nothing actually getting done. So like with the podcast, I wanted to do it for 4 years. So I'm slowly changing it on there. And I've been listening to a lot of great, educators and people who've been there, done that. And all of them say the same thing. You're not going to know everything, but if you have the will and the tenacity, then you're just start doing it because you'll learn it or it'll come or you know what I mean, but you just have to get started. So that's the thing that I'm really trying to, reinforce with myself.
That's very true. For better or worse, I do have a tendency to dive in head first.
Which is a good thing.
And it is. Sometimes you do have to learn hard lessons that way.
That's true. Sometimes there will be tears.
Absolutely.
I hear
But
that.
overall, it's a really, really, it was a great experience. I'm very open with sharing with other people who want to do things. So I'm like, let me tell you what not to do.
No, that's awesome. I love
the
it.
point that you make about you're never going to be 100% ready is so true. Because if I had waited to be 100% ready,
Mm-hmm.
it probably would have never happened.
Right.
It
And
probably
in
would have never.
hindsight now, I know that even just with myself of trying to be so 100%, I had
Right.
quit my microphone and all the research on that and the equipment and then learning the software. And
Sure.
it's just like, you got to do this. You could just,
Let's do
you're
it.
not going to be perfect. It's
Let's
not going to
do
be
it.
perfect. So just do
Absolutely.
it. And I'm now that I'm out here doing this, it's good. It's just, and I see, like I started my YouTube channel right after, like a couple months afterwards. And because I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to start diving in.
Right.
And even if I'm not like all the way there. So that's wonderful. I love seeing people's stories about, how they get from A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
And and I have your 12-inch clammy.
Okay.
And I can't wait to use it. But again, it's like I am saving it for a project for me. So that's another thing. I think I'm going to have to start diving in on my own projects. So.
Yes, you have to. You have to just get it done.
Yeah.
Make you a priority.
Exactly. Oh, there's only so many hours in the day. And the other thing is I think I like to just do too many things.
Yeah.
So, but you only live once, so you just
Right.
got to do. I'm
Right.
a little bit like squirrel, because now after I had my last week's guest on, she's has this really pretty hexy crochet afghan where it's almost like English paper piecing. So you just crochet the little hexy pieces. Isn't that cool?
This is why when I started quilting, because of the fact that I was the serial crafter that many of us are, when I started quilting, I'm like, that's all I'm going to do is quilt. Yeah. And I just recently, and after doing garments for so many years, I didn't even do garment sewing the 9 or 10 years I've been quilting. I pretty much, and just within the last year, I've been dipping my toe back into making garments again, just for me, because I find out that it's easier for me to selfish sew and sew a garment because I can complete a dress in 3 hours versus selfish sewing and sewing a quilt for me. Because then I think, oh, I should be working on this pattern, or I have this project due, or whatever. But if I'm sewing a garment, then I find it's a little bit easier for me to sew selfishly.
True.
So,
yeah. And it's kind of like a fast finish. So I love those too. Sometimes I'll sew like a bag or something like that, and it's cool.
Exactly.
So, but so you've got your templates.
Yes.
And you have your patterns. And you have fabrics with Hoffman.
With Hoffman, yes, I do. It's that's been a really big learning experience for me as well, because surface design is a completely different monster than quilt design or developing templates and all of this other. And I just my third line is in stores now. It's called 1985, and I still don't feel like I have my sea legs under me with fabric designs. I don't feel 100% confident with what I love what I put out. Don't get me wrong, but I still am a little bit more hesitant than I would like to be.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm thinking like towards my fourth line, and what do I want to put out with that? And I think I'm just going to go all in with something that really reflects me. Like even more, I think everything I do reflects me, but even more. And then just like set the fear aside and just dive and go for it. So we'll see how that goes.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. Your double Dutch line.
Yes.
There's a fabric. I don't have it yet. I really, really want it though. It's the indigo. And you could describe it as like ice cream dots, but when I see it, it reminds me of my Light Bright from when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. So yeah, it was made. You can see it more on the white one that has the, but you can see it more on the white print. It's supposed to represent candy dots,
right?
Yeah, it's supposed
to candy dots. I thought it was the ice cream.
The little dots
that were glued on the paper.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see that now. I could totally see that. Yeah.
Exactly.
But very cool. They're very kind of like retro, which is reminds me when I grew up.
Yeah, that's
that
one.
A
little throwback.
Yeah, and the 1985.
Yep,
totally.
And all of my fabric is a little bit of a throwback. So my first line was graphic, and that was in homage to graffiti and street art. It's from being raised in South Central Los Angeles.
Okay.
And having the influences of the hip hop culture and kind of street art all around me growing up. And then the next line, Double Dutch, was an homage to like an urban childhood, but it was my urban childhood. So once again, that's being raised I was born in 76, so being raised in the 80s as well. So ice cream truck artwork, and I wanted to capture that one day when you are a day in the summer when you're outside playing jump rope with your friends and you hear the ice cream truck. That was the moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's called Double Dutch. And then 1985, I got to dive into the Hoffman archives, and pull out prints for inspiration.
Okay.
So I used original artwork, and this is not from quilting cottons. This is from fabric that they developed for manufacturers that did like board shorts and
okay.
Yeah, and so it's really funky, crazy prints, and we use those as inspiration. And then from there, I built my prints off of original Hoffman artwork from the archives. So
yeah, I like it. I'm looking at it right now. So this rainbow one, I mean, it really captures, because I grew up exactly in those times.
Right.
And these are all the colors. And I had those sunglasses with the paint splotches all on the front of the glass.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they didn't have the technology back then that they do now, where you could probably, because they brought that back. I saw some of those splotchy glasses like a couple years ago.
I'm not surprised.
But you could see through them. Versus in the 80s, they were actual like paint lines that you really didn't see through. But you just thought you were cool because you had it all over your glasses.
Even if you can't see.
Exactly. It's funny. Cool. Yeah. So I like it. That's nice. And your fabric design. So you're an engineer by trade. Does that mean like that you already knew sort of the software, or did you pick it up quickly like the Adobe to do this fabric and quilt pattern design?
So I actually am self-taught. So when I decided when I got laid off from my job, I'm like, okay, what do I have to learn to do the pattern design? This is before I even thought about fabric. Or I had thought about it, but I wasn't even playing with fabric then. And I'm like, okay, I need to learn the Adobe suite. So I mainly work in Illustrator and InDesign. I do a little bit of Photoshop, and I'm pretty much completely self-taught on that. And I had to learn that to do my patterns. For my fabric design, I still rely heavily on the designers at Hoffman. And because when I first started working with them, I'm like, I've never done repeats. I don't know the formats you guys need in. I don't know anything. And they were like, that's fine. So I work closely, and it's actually a challenge to be able to communicate your concepts to designers and go back and forth. And there's a level of trust that exists between you and the designer as well, that they have to trust what you're communicating to them and vice versa.
Right.
Trust them to give you. And a lot of times they look at me like, you want me to do what? Okay. But they always go back and do it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what I want. And they're like,
cool.
Okay, and then like, after the fact, after everything is out, they were like, oh, I really like it now that I see it all together, but it's about trusting your own vision and being able to work with someone to communicate that as well. So I do rely heavily still as far as artwork with my fabric design on the design team at Hoffman, and they've been really great to work with.
Yeah. And they're out of California, right? Hoffman?
Yeah, so good. They're in Orange County.
All right, so you get to actually go in to
an hour away. Yeah.
That's really nice.
Oh, yes.
Cool. All right. Nice. Yeah. Fun. So do you have a collection coming out? 1985 released when?
It released in the fall of last year in Houston. So I generally only do one collection every year, maybe
that's
even
good.
I just think that the market is flooded with so much fabric, and creatively, I'm so drained by spreading myself way too thin because I am a one-woman show. Like, I don't even have an assistant now, even though I'm at that stage where I need one.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So, yes, it was just a decision. Like, I'm only going to put one fabric line out a year. I don't think the industry needs more than that right now. I think there's a lot of fabric out.
Oh, I agree with you. I'm telling you, I can't even keep up myself. I mean, when I first, like in that 2015 is when people really were starting to educate themselves on what designers are out there and whose collections are coming out when. And, then we had like the Instagrams and stuff pop up where people would like film stuff from the shows. And so, at first I really was like gung ho on that. I'm like, all right, yes, I'm going to know whose collection is, timely. like that. And I did for a little bit, but now in the last like couple years, I'm just like, let it go. There's no way that I can collect every single person's collection.
It's overwhelming. And then I think the negative flip side is that I buy less fabric because of the fact that it's so much fabric out there that I know I'm going to find something when I decide that I need something.
Right.
So the flip side is I actually purchase less fabric with this extreme amount of fabric in the market. So I don't know if it's really good for the market even to be like flooded as much.
Right. Yeah.
So
it is. Yeah. It's overwhelming. It's a lot. Yeah. It really is. And then I just don't like, I mean, I know it is what it is and it has to be, but when they introduce fabric lines, they introduce it and they get people so excited over it, like 6 months at least before people can even get their hands on this fabric. So that kind of like irritates me.
Yeah, the cycles are really...
Yeah. And really, so that's why I stopped following a lot of it because I was getting so excited over this, one fabric line coming out, and I literally months and months, but then it was so saturated, like because people got it early, the influencers or whatever, ambassadors, and they're making all this cool stuff, and you're like, when am I going to be able to buy this?
Right.
And then when it came out, I'm like, I don't even want it anymore.
That's funny.
So now I try not to follow all the market stuff because I would rather be more pleasantly surprised when these quilt shops can get it. And it's frustrating for the quilt shops too, because I interviewed my local quilt shop on the show and she said, they order this stuff in advance. And she's like, it takes so long to get it here.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even remember what they order.
Exactly. I know.
So I like that one a year. I'm with you on that for sure, all the way. And then your we mentioned it a little bit before, but this blueprint class that just came out is really great. I love it. I'm going to watch it again because I had it on just to like watch it all the way through. But now I'm going to watch it again just to really, pay a little bit more attention to your technique and stuff. But it's so pretty.
It's a fun technique. The quilts actually go together a lot quicker than it's like the rainbow quilt is a really easy sew. Even though it's a technique that people aren't really familiar with. I got to some really fun things. They painted my set to match my quilts.
Oh, cool. It's pretty.
Visually, it's a really pretty class. They did a great job on it. The quilts are really fun. The technique is also really fun. So it's one of my favorite techniques to teach because once you learn the technique, you can really play with it yourself as well. So it's a top stitch bias tape applique. And I just got my quilts back from Blueprints. I just laid them out and laid on them last night. It made me so happy because the rainbow quilt is such a happy quilt, And the other one is a modern double wedding ring quilt, which is a really fun way to sew a double wedding ring sort of a quilt as well. So
double wedding ring is one of my favorites.
And it was so much fun after like shooting my YouTube videos, like in the corner of my bedroom, to be able to have like cameraman and a producer and all of this. And it was like, oh, this is nice.
Right. Like actual camera lights production.
Exactly. And you not trying to like figure it out on your own and run between your iPad and your,
I totally know that. Because I've been putting up some videos of my own, and I'm just struggling to get through. Like, I'm looking over there because that's where my sewing's at. But now I'm thinking, like, should I install something on the ceiling for my down shots, or how am I going to? It's so nice to have someone that takes care of all that for you.
Exactly. It was fascinating. And it was a great team to work with as well. I mean, there was a lot of changes between when it transitioned from Craftsy to Blueprint.
Yeah.
And so I know some of the earlier instructors kind of struggle with that, but I didn't have that sort of baggage. And I'm like, why not? I designed 2 quilts. We shoot for a week in Denver. You know what I mean? It took me the prep work and stuff to go into it, but it ended up being a really fabulous experience. And I'm really happy and proud of the product that was put out at the end. So,
yeah. Well, is this your first class with them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're right. So you don't have what it was before. I mean, just as a user, I was on Craftsy like right when it first started. I loved it when they were small, and I kind of knew. I'm like, if they continue to grow, I just kind of want to keep them my secret and everybody go away. Because
Yeah,
when you grow so much, then things have to change. It's
I
just,
have to. Yeah, that's the nature of the beast.
yeah, yeah. So they may not have done everything great, but like until recently, Blueprint didn't really have a good navigation. So I was trying to find certain classes that I knew were there somewhere, but now they finally have incorporated it in there. So, and
Yeah,
my libraries, because Craftsy was separate in the Blueprint, and it was, so I'm like, oh my gosh.
right.
But
Yeah,
it's
they're
much
in the
better now.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and then there's a lot more production thought is being put into the production from the back end. So
Hmm.
instead of just having standard sets, they're really customizing things to each teacher. And so I think the quality of the classes themselves are going to improve a bit too. So
Oh,
I'm kind of
good.
excited. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm really happy with the product.
Yeah.
The,
Well, your
and
class turned out
the
fantastic.
trailer is so pretty. I'm like, oh my god, I look professional. I
Well,
love
it is NBC.
it. It's
So,
good though. It's all good.
but what I was going to say about that bias class is that because it's not new to me, but the only bias that I've ever seen on quilts and attempted to do was more that traditional little skinny vine thing, and I love like the different sizes and
Hmm.
the big bias strips. It's so cool,
Yeah, and I
so
use the
much
two
fun.
inch bias tape strips for the rainbow quilt.
Yeah, I love
This
that.
is the size that, like, I've never even seen the 2 inch being sold in stores. You have to go, like, go on Amazon or whatever and buy it. But it's a really fun size to play with because it's so bold and in your face.
Oh, wait. So the 2 inch makes a finished 2 inch strip?
Yeah.
Oh, because I only have the 1 inch. And I thought that was big.
The 2 inch.
Ooh, all right.
Yes,
I got
you
to
have
write
to
that
get
down. I have to get it. 2 inch bias
it.
maker. All right, cool. Oh, I'm so
Exactly.
excited.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, let's take a turn and talk about your creative life. And I think you alluded to this a little bit, but what do you love to do most for you? Like when you're creating for yourself, what fills your soul? And it doesn't have to be quilting, but I mean, there's probably other things. I don't know. Do you garden I know you craft,
I actually
cook.
nowadays pretty much I do cook. I do love to cook. But pretty much nowadays, I all of my focus is on building my business,
Hmm.
and I've sort of been struggling with the creative process a bit lately because of the fact that when you're creating for a specific purpose, it's very different than creating just because.
Right.
And a lot of my best quilt designs and even patterns and things came from designs where I was creating just for the sake of creation. But when you're building a business, then a lot of times you're creating in a very different um, constraints, and you have different parameters around how you're creating and why, and the types of things that you design for patterns or whatever. So I've kind of been trying to step back a little bit, back into that space where I'm creating just for the sake of creating, which is sometimes more difficult to do under a deadline. But I just like to keep my eyes open. My very first blog was I Dream of Quilts. And a lot of my creative process isn't real deliberate. I kind of just throw ideas into the back of my mind and let my mind sort of stew over them and germinate, and things will start to pop up and pop out. And I try to expose myself to beauty in all different forms. So I look for beauty in unusual places. So I live in South Central Los Angeles. We moved to help take care of my 98-year-old grandfather. So we are living his home close to Watts in South Central Los Angeles. So it's not the most typically beautiful environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I look for those sparks of beauty that you see even in spaces that may not necessarily be typically beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So I take the time to look up and look down, to look beyond, to see things and unusual circumstances, to see the way people put clothes together or colors or, and I try to expose myself, keep my eyes open at all times, but I also try to expose myself to beauty in more traditional forms. So I love like art museums. I love art. I love architecture is a big area that I really, really, really love. So I just try to keep myself really open to be able to absorb. So then when I do decide to create, that I have a lot to pull from and a lot of different types of things to pull from as well.
Yeah, that's very true what you say about that because, I'm transitioning to this quilting maker side of my business versus my interior design side, and I find it the same that, when you focus so much on work and what has to be done and deadlines, sometimes it stifles a little bit. And then when I actually take a break, and sometimes my husband is just like, come on, we need to go to the dog beach or, out in outside. And we go, and same thing. I love looking for that beauty out there everywhere. And it's like just an afternoon outside in a different setting, and just soaking it in really just helps to refill and refuel and give you a different perspective on things. So that's so true. Yeah. And I think a lot of creatives work like that anyway, just because I think it's just the nature of being creative. I mean, you really have to clear your mind and your spirit in order to, let yourself,
And then there's also a lot of pressures kind of being in this industry. So I think the pressure of like the whole social media pressure of comparing yourself to other creators. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I try, like, theoretically, I understand what that is. Mm-hmm. But in reality, I experience it just like so many other people do as well. So a lot of times I have to really step back, from all of that as well. And I'm even thought about, like, I'm going to quilt market. I don't have a booth this time. I only do one booth a year. And usually the market that my fabric line comes out, but even like looking forward to quilt market, I'm just being very conscious of not doing the compare game, right, and being appreciate other people's work and art for what it is, mm-hmm, and not using that as any way to judge or compare myself, and mm-hmm, it's a tough sort of a challenge, but it's a real challenge, yeah, and it's a reality, being a creative in a very creative industry, because we have some amazing makers,
So amazing. Oh, it's unreal. I know. Right. Right. It's so true. And that's why I too, like, personally look to other creative industries for creativity so that I don't have that pressure, because it's natural. We're all, even if we say, I'm not paying attention to what anybody else is doing. Yes, you are. Yeah, exactly. You're seeing it. If you love to do quilting, you're going to see other quilts. Exactly. So it's just, making yourself a little bit more, I guess, building your confidence, exactly, to not let it get to you. But like, I even listen, like for podcasts, I listen to this woodworking podcast, and I mean, I don't woodwork, but these guys are so creative. They have YouTube channels. They've got great advice for, I get tips about filming and stuff like that. But even like the stuff that they make, the one guy is making signs for Bullet whiskey. And it's just so creative. I mean, you can get creative, cues from that. So, and even with gardening too. So, I think that's right. And it's a little bit more healthy way to look at things, when you don't get stuck in that little, I don't know, quagmire of comparison.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for sharing that, because it's, even if we're not in a creative business and we're doing this as our hobby, you still fall into that with not even wanting to show. Maybe you don't even want to post on Instagram because, oh my gosh, so-and-so made the same quilt and it looks so much better, la, la, la. So I just think it's good for us to realize that everybody's in the same boat and we're all thinking sort of the same thing. But at the same time, when we see really good work put out by other creatives, I mean, we also love to support that and say, hey, that looks awesome. Absolutely. And I feel like we do, but it's a good reminder to maybe just like put a little comment on someone's post, like, hey, that's awesome. That looks great. I love it. Because I try to do as much as I can. And I like when people do it, to me.
So. Everyone has some level of insecurities. Yeah. And we gotta show love.
Exactly.
Love. Absolutely.
Share the love. Send the love. So going back to sewing and quilting, what are a couple of your favorite notions and tools? I know one of them.
the clammy. So I I'm one of those. I love tools, but I don't like tools just for the sake of having them. So I
Right.
don't like to have too much stuff. But I love some of my favorite tools are things that you get from like the hardware store. Like masking tape is one of my favorite. So I use it oftentimes for guides. I even show a little trick like on my blueprint class for joining your bias tape strips using masking tape on the bed of your machine. And
Mm-hmm.
I like really practical tools like that maybe not be a super name brand or super expensive. Like we were talking about seam rollers earlier. I
Yeah.
still buy my seam rollers from the hardware store.
Right.
They're wallpaper rollers. That's
Yep.
what they traditionally were. They're just rebranded as quilting tools and sold for more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what do I really, really love? Like a must take. I love my Kai scissors.
Oh yeah.
They're fabulous. I've sewed a lot of, not personally, but I've sewed a lot of the roundabout mats for Martelli because it's
Oh
a
yes.
rotating cutting mat that's really, really amazing. So, and I'm one of those, I'm an enabler in my circle of friends, quilt friends. I wound up getting everyone to buy what I love too. So we have a lot of Janome owners in the LA Guild because of that.
I love it. I know those roundabout mats look so good, but I already got those square ones from Ulfa. So I have like a small one and a bigger one, and I
The
feel
roundabout will change your life.
really. Oh, I just got to
So a
do
little
it.
hint: sign up for the Martelli because they're not cheap.
No, I know.
Sign up for the Martelli newsletter.
I
And
do.
like twice a year, they do their 50% off sales.
Oh, okay. Twice a
So
year.
that's my little hint. But
Thank you.
I demo with them because they're great for cutting around like the 12-inch clammy, which you own.
Yeah.
And I demo with them at shows. And the Martelli booth always gets lots of traffic for my booth because people are like, "Oh, I need that. Where are you going to
Right.
I need to start selling those in my booth as well."
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
There,
yeah,
and it's round, right? It's not
it
the
is
square.
round.
See, and
It's
I
round, but
understand.
it
And
has a very heavy base and it's very
ah,
stable and sturdy.
okay.
So and there are other brands out there that are good as well, but that's just one I really do love a lot.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, I think I do need to do the upgrade. So, because the square one is okay, but those corners definitely get in the way a
Mm-hmm.
lot when you're trying to, turn it
Mm-hmm.
around. And then there is not really a base. It's just like
Right.
a flimsy thing that falls off. Yeah. So cool. All right. I'm glad you like that. That's interesting. I am definitely going to look for that. I'm on their mailing list, so I will be getting that
Like
email.
twice a year they do a big 50% off sale, or a couple times a year they do. So I always
All
tell people
right.
look for it.
Very good. See, I love learning about I like tools to be useful, but I am also like a gadgety type person. So anything to make my life easier, I love.
We just don't have a lot of space, so I have to be really like I'm going to only buy things that I really use.
Yeah. Well, I don't
So
have a lot of space either, but I don't know.
that doesn't stop you.
I find a spot for it.
I think we all do.
And what tips can you give listeners or quilters on sewing with curves and bias tape? Just something.
The biggest thing is everything that I always my tagline and my philosophy about sewing in general has always been nothing is difficult if we take it one stitch at a time. Everything that we sew is one stitch at a time.
Right.
And that was kind of the philosophy that we adopted when I was a kid. And we didn't know that sewing a Vogue pattern was supposed to be hard. So we just dove in and we would try whatever. And sometimes we would fail and fall on our face and we just go to the next project, So it's like, don't be afraid to fail. And everything is one stitch at a time. So with sewing curves, I did do a series of YouTube videos finally about my pinless piecing technique. And just go for it. It takes a little bit of practice. If you use my technique, it feels a little bit awkward and backwards from how we normally sew because we're using both of our hands a lot at our machine. But try it. Go for it. Dive in, watch the YouTube videos. And I don't have YouTube up for the bias tape applique, but the blueprint class is really, really great for that.
It really is.
I also did a fresh quilting. It was a PBS show.
Oh, yes.
The Modern Quilt Guild did. So I did a fresh quilting episode on bias tape applique that I think is still available for viewing.
I may have it recorded on my DVR because I record the Fresh Quilting Show, but I have kind of like, I don't know, 12 episodes in the queue.
It was from the first season, and I think I have a link to it on my YouTube.
Oh, all right. I'll grab a link.
I think I do. If not, I'll send it to you.
Send it because I'll put it on the show notes page.
Oh, perfect.
That will be great. Yeah. And also on your YouTube one where you were sewing the clammy rows together, I like you did those little screen rolls at the bottom of like, now this goes against my no pin rule, but believe me when I say to pin, you should pin. And it was only 3 pins, and that's how I do it. I do like 1, 2, and 3.
So that's for the clam toss pattern.
Okay.
And the clam toss is different. The clam is sewn in vertical rows, like a row at a time from top to bottom.
Okay.
Clam toss is sewn in these diagonal wavy rows.
Because and they're off.
Yeah. It's exactly. All the clams are in different orientations.
Right.
And those diagonal rows have the curve changes direction. So you go from convex to concave along the whole thing.
Right.
So the only way to get a good accurate seam is to pin. I always say that I'm an anti-pinner. I'm not. I believe in pinning where necessary, but I also am not an over pinner.
Right.
So if I can do it without pinning, I'm going to figure out how to do that.
Exactly.
Because it takes more time to pin. You know, so if I can get an excellent quality product without pinning. But yeah, if I'm telling you to pin on something, then you should probably just go ahead and listen to me.
That's funny. I was laughing when I saw that. Yeah, but that is a very similar process to when you construct a double wedding ring quilt, because you're sewing the rows together and they go convex and concave. So you definitely have to pin, because I tried to sew those rows without pins and I'm like, why am I having so many problems? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should try pinning this. And then it was like so much easier. So yeah, that's great. But I love that you really seem to like, you know, your thing is sewing with curves, and I love curves and sewing with them too. So I think it's great, and your patterns are beautiful.
The curve sewing is not a deliberate. I don't think I love sewing with curves.
Really?
I just always end up sewing curves. It's the weirdest thing. And then I got into the whole path of the clammy and the glam clam. It started opened this whole like a path that my business has followed that wasn't necessarily a deliberate decision, you know, but
it was meant to be.
It was meant to be, and it's a happy path. I love it.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah.
I myself gravitate towards curves in design, anything, and I just like it because it's just that more organic shape is just more interesting to me.
The flow, I love the flow.
I really like it. Yeah. Well, great. I just got like this little fun quiz left, and it's the first time I'm doing this, so because I thought maybe I can get some interesting tidbits from people that we don't know. That's kind of fun. So, what's your favorite food that's good for you health wise and not so good for you but yummy? Your favorite.
So those are two different things, right?
Right. Like, you know, like when we say favorite food, most of the times it's like something that's super like, you know, rich and calorie laden, but we can also have like a favorite healthy food too, right?
Well, the interesting thing is I am all about trying. I love to cook, but I don't ever like to make the same recipe twice. I like to try something. I like to try new things. I'm the weird person that'll like throw a whole dinner party and with all new recipes. I'm that person. But one of the weird things I did as a child was to read cookbooks. And I wouldn't always, my mom thought I was just the weirdest child ever, because I would check out, along with my quilting books, and I didn't even quilt back then, but I would check out quilting books and craft books and cookbooks. So I can spot a good recipe. It's like a talent I have. I can read a recipe, like that's going to be great. And so I love to try new recipes and things, but I've been on a kind of a health kick for the past year and a half. So I lost 40 pounds and I pretty much eat keto. So I cut out a lot of the really bad stuff. But back in the day, I used to love like anything like desserts and ice cream, but homemade ice cream would probably be my one like.
Yeah. That's worth it if it's homemade ice cream.
It's so good. It's like nothing like it.
Because don't you hate it when you eat something that you're like, that was so not worth all the calories and fat I just consumed?
Why did I do that?
Why? Yeah.
You better make it worth it. And then I guess I'm a big fruit person, so they get what's good and but healthy for you. And I live in Southern California, so summertime is coming.
Oh,
Fruit. And I don't eat a lot of that, now in the way that I eat. But if I were to cheat, fruit would be the thing I would cheat on.
okay.
Watermelon and berries. And
Oh, wait, because is that like not part of the keto, the fruit?
it's not. You can eat some berries, but for the most part, you don't do high carb at all. And
Oh, so bananas would be out and avocados would be out. Yeah.
avocados are in. Avocados are totally in. I
Oh,
eat
they're
lots of them.
in? Oh, because I love avocados. And
Which
man,
is also great.
California.
It's
Oh, I love it. I know when we go out there, I just love the food because it's just so
yeah,
fresh. And you
it's
see
fresh.
all the farms. Like you drive
And
by all the farms and you see
exactly.
avocado farm. Oh my gosh.
But the best thing I love now is any kind of vegetables roasted. I can eat
Yes.
any kind of vegetables like cauliflower roasted. We had asparagus last night roasted.
Hmm.
Like that's my jam right now.
Yeah, I love them too, roasted, because it brings out their natural sweetness and that caramelization
Absolutely.
is the best.
So
Oh,
good.
I love it too. Oh, that's great.
Okay.
So,
It was probably a way longer answer than you were asking.
no, it's good. It's fine. What's your favorite weather season of the year? Like,
Springtime.
oh, is it really? Oh, but Los Angeles is different though, because what is a Los Angeles spring?
Yeah, this is true. But we lived in Texas for a number of years where
Okay.
we didn't have much of a winter, but you definitely knew when springtime came around. I was
Okay.
born in the spring, which probably has something to do with it. But I think I have a mild case of SAD, which has never been diagnosed. But even winters
Hmm.
in California are hard for me. Like I need
Huh.
I need sunshine. So when that season starts to change and the days start to get longer,
Hmm.
my body automatically notices it.
Yeah.
Springtime, I feel like I'm coming alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, spring is definitely my favorite.
Interesting. Fall is my favorite, but I'm in a much colder climate,
Yes.
and I do get the sad too, for sure.
Yeah.
But I still would prefer winter over summer because
Can't say
I
that.
just can't deal. I can't deal with the mosquitoes
Yeah.
and like the that hot, humid
Can you
sun.
believe we're getting mosquitoes in LA now? I'm like
You
Indy 9.
are.
Oh my God, it's horrible. I'm like,
Oh
that's
man.
one great thing about living here.
Oh, I never knew that. Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe mosquitoes aren't normally in more like arid, dry climates.
I guess not. Maybe not.
Oh, interesting.
We definitely had
Okay.
them in Texas, but we normally don't have them in LA.
Yeah,
And I think
we got them here, but man, the most that I have been exposed to mosquitoes is when we visited my sister-in-law up in Canada and went up to their cottage country in Ontario.
wow.
Oh man, I was like, we went on, to these trails in the woods. I mean, it's beautiful, but I'm like, I have to get out of here. Like the
Right.
mosquitoes are like swarming on me.
You can hear the buzz.
Yeah, and you can feel it. They were just like, I mean,
Yeah,
it was terrible, but anyway,
absolutely.
that's why, I mean, I watch all those Alaska shows and like they always say like they prefer the winter because in the summer, and you can even see when they're filming, there's just all these mosquitoes like
Yeah,
everywhere. Oh,
absolutely.
it's crazy. But anyway, I digress. So, do you have a favorite color, and what is a least favorite color?
Um, I love all the colors, and by that I don't mean I love the rainbow, but I think that every color is necessary
Hmm.
because when you how you combine them and when you put them together. A color that I thought that I hated because when I was growing up, we had to wear these horrible forest green uniforms
Hmm.
and these really shades that kids should never have to be forced to wear. So I thought that I hated green, but as an adult, I realized I love green, but more the brighter, like Kelly green kind of color.
Okay.
But there's no color that I dislike.
Really?
No,
Oh, man, I have a couple I do.
a lot of people do, and it's colors like purple and orange. People either usually hate them or love them.
I love
But
purple, don't love
I love,
orange.
yeah, it's like that a lot. It's funny how people
Hmm.
feel about colors, but I think I love them all together because I like to play with unusual color combinations and putting them together in different ways.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, that's fun.
yeah.
All right, if you could live in any era, this is the last one. When would it be and why? Any time era. Like some people say, oh, I was born in the wrong, time. I should have been born in the 40s or something like that.
Okay, I don't know. That one is tough because I just think about like kind of the struggle of my people over time.
Oh, yeah.
I think I want to be born now and living now, just
Yeah.
because of the fact that there are lots of opportunities. We still have the possibility of change and growth. There's a lot of things that are in flux right now, and, and so I'm just really embracing the now. And I think I was in the perfect time. So.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Yeah.
Very good. I don't know. Sometimes when I watch these time era pieces, like one that just finished up a season was Versailles, and that's like in the, I don't know, 1700s, but it's just crazy to be in that time of where you were part of the court of this King Louis the 14th, and everything was in excess, and all the fashion and all of the architecture that they did is just crazy. So I'm like, it would just be interesting only if you were able to live that lifestyle.
Yeah, only
in that day and time.
If you were part of a certain class.
Right, exactly.
And didn't pick the king off and get beheaded or something like that.
But then I remember, penicillin wasn't invented yet, and probably would die really soon.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very, very good. So, do you have anything else to promote coming up for Latifah Saafir Studios in the next year or two?
I just completed a pattern that's been in the making for like 3 years, which is a pieced clamshell quilt pattern called Callaloo. So it's really fun because it's a sampler. And so you can make the sampler quilt that's on the cover, or you can take each of it's 10 different piece clamshell shapes. You can take each one individually, make a quilt out of those individual piece clamshell, or you can mix and match. So I'm really excited about that.
Cool.
Quilt Cadets, I'm in the process of finalizing the new patterns that I work with Annabelle Wrigley from Little Pink Kitchen Studios.
Oh, cool.
So hopefully those will go to print over the next few weeks. And after that, I'm working on just marketing and promotion of things that I have. I have a new ruler that's in development that I'm not going to say any more about.
Okay.
Our template set. So I'm working on that. Just a lot of future stuff. But I'm kind of taking a step back and just really trying to figure out like marketing and getting things to the public, and trying to figure out kind of my path in this. So
yeah, and then just to also enjoy yourself too while you're doing it, and not putting too much on your plate either, because you're in a lot. You're in a lot.
I don't know that I know how to not do that, but I'm trying to be more careful about what I say yes to and what I say no to.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people saying that now. Yeah. Versus like 5 years ago, everybody was just like everything, yes. But so many more people are saying that now, which is good. It's nice to hear. And I think it puts everybody else at rest, like all your customers and everything too. Like, it's okay. You do not have to be, like in a frenzy to keep up with everybody.
Exactly.
Like I started this, quilt along, and it's still going on right now, but it's almost over. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep up with it, but I just like the pattern, so I will do it.
Right.
But, I was kind of like feeling that pull, that toss and pull. And finally I'm just like, it's okay. It's like, like no one is gonna, it's not a deadline I have to get paid, you know what I mean? Paid for or something like that. It's just like for fun. So when I can get the time to enjoy it, then I'll finish it.
I started a garment sewing challenge. That was kind of the same way. So I'm behind as of last week, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll be okay.
It'll still be there. And I love the pattern enough that I know I'm going to finish this one. That's the other thing I've learned over time is that, once you're kind of starting, I didn't develop like my whole, like, all right, I love this, I hate this, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like, so now I do know. So I would start like these quilt-alongs or whatever, and then I didn't like it. So that's when I know I'm not going to finish that one. But this one, I know I'm going to finish it because I love it that much, and I love the fabrics I got for
There's
it.
definitely a power in learning who you are within a craft or in an art or a craft. And I always tell people to embrace that and dig deep within that space. Like, you don't have to do everything.
Right.
And find things that make you happy. And that doesn't mean you can't try and play and learn new things and do new things.
Mm-hmm.
Find the things that make you happy and do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer in that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's really great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and just everything about your, journey through your, not just your creative life, but even like growing your business and, what keeps you going. It's really refreshing to see that. And I like your one fabric line a year, so keep on going with that.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for saying yes to being on my show. I really appreciate it. I'm so honored. And I just, I love seeing what you post. That pattern that you're talking about, I think you recently were posting some progress on it.
A couple of snapshots. I'll be posting more over the next week or two.
Yeah.
You get to see a lot of it. And I'm hoping to do a quilt along / challenge with it. I'm actually going to do a design challenge with it. So with people, I'm challenging people to use the pattern as a kind of a base point and to design quilts around it. So I'm kind of excited about that. It's a little bit different.
Nice. I like that. Okay, very good. So I'll put everything on the show notes, and we'll just keep our eye out for all of your upcoming things. And definitely I encourage people to watch her blueprint class because I watched it and it is wonderful. It's amazing, and I can't wait to get that 2-inch bias maker.
You have to get it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Latifah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Latifah has just a wealth of knowledge in quilting and sewing, and she so generously shares it. So I really love her so much. She is such an inspiration, and it was so nice to talk with her. And I looked at my little bias, because I have a collection of little, those bias tape makers. And I do have a 2-inch one. I'm so excited. I remember when I got it too, because I bought a set of these bias tape makers at a quilt show like 10 years ago. And I've used the smaller sizes, but I've never used the giant one. So now I get to use it. Woohoo. I'm so excited. So anyway, thanks Latifah for sharing that gem. All right. So if you guys are still with me, I know this episode is crazy long. It really is. I'm almost like getting up there with the Joe Rogan lengths. But there's just so much good stuff. So, and if you guys are listening to this while you're sewing or whatever, traveling, then it doesn't really seem that long now, does it? All right, so here's just the last few little tidbits. What I'm watching, I started talking about watching Les Mis, and it just finished. So it was 6 episodes long on PBS, and I finished it. And I really liked it. It just, it really is a great story. I think that's why it has its, everlasting quality and spans all these generations. So, of course, Masterpiece always does a magnificent job with all of these types of stories. So if you haven't seen it, you can see it on the PBS website. If you do like some, I don't know, they ask for a certain donation. I think it ends up being like if you divide it out among 12 months, $5 a month. And then, of course, for all of you Game of Thrones fans, I did watch the last episode of the series, and I was just meh about it. It has been getting a lot of feedback that people were very upset with the ending. They hated it. They're like, thanks for wasting 8 years of my life. I didn't really have those strong of feelings about it, but that last episode kind of just left me with just like, whatever, it was anticlimactic, and they threw in some major twists and surprises at the very end without developing some things. And for me, I just felt like it was thrown together. Their seasons are usually 8 episodes long, so I'm not quite sure why they felt like this last season needed to be done in 6 episodes. They really could have taken 2 more episodes to make some explanations, and I'm not going to try not to do any spoilers. So in case you haven't watched it yet, but those were my feelings about it. All right. And then YouTube. I found this channel and I love it. This person has been doing YouTube videos just for about over a year now. And I've been catching up. I've been doing lots of like little binge watching of her episodes. And her name is Kate. She's in Northern England and her channel is called The Last Homely House East of the Sea. So it's a long title, but you'll be able to find it I'll put a link to it actually in my show notes so that you can go right to it. But so anyway, this woman just does everything, and she's very creative, and I enjoy watching her videos. And the first video that I saw came up in my recommendations, and it was she was making something out of Liberty fabrics. And of course I'm like, oh, Liberty. I drool over Liberty fabrics. I love them. So yeah, that kind of got me hooked. And then she does quilting and she does a lot of different crafts and arts. So she makes pottery. What else? She just does crafty things. One time she was talking in a video, and while she was chatting, she was gluing Liberty scraps to a cardboard box that she was making to hold postcards. And these postcards she makes and sends out to her Patreon supporters at a certain the ones that donate are at a certain level. So I thought that was cool. And just some good ideas. And it's just interesting to see, her lifestyle and living up in a much more rural place than I'm used to. But it's absolutely gorgeous out there. She's got chickens and cats and everything. So a really nice woman, and I really enjoy her channel, and I think you guys would too. So take a look at it and let me know what you think. All right, that's it. I'm ending this episode now. It needs to have an end, so this is it. Until next time, toodles. Thanks for listening to the Make and Decorate podcast. You can find the show notes and the podcast episodes on my website at stephaniesochadesign.com. And I appreciate any ratings, reviews, and comments that you would like to post, and give me feedback on Instagram or wherever you are at. Okay, bye.